Aces Up, World War I Fighter Combat. This is a game published by 2 Hour War Games, a publisher that I like very, 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 very much. I play many of the games and I love how they tend to create procedurally generated narratives. The story is very strong with their games, and so this seems to be very exciting because I thought I was gonna find the same narrative-driven philosophy of some of the other games with dogfights. How is that not lovely? And also, this is a game that, like many other games by the same publisher, can be played solitaire or can be played against opponents. You can just fight against the mechanics of the game. There is a way here to automatize the behavior of enemy fighters. So that seems to be amazing because I also do play most of my war games solitaire. I like the flexibility of being able to play them whenever I have some time. So really high expectations, and unfortunately my experience with the game has not been positive. It started with the rulebook, which I found very, very difficult to use. And I played hundreds, if not thousands of games by now, and I guess I'm at the point where I start thinking if I really can't figure out the rulebook, maybe it's not me, maybe it's the rulebook. It may still be me, mind you, but I'm telling you that for a rulebook that is so short, it's about 14 pages of rules, and many of those, maybe half of those, are tables or things about the campaign, how to link missions together, how to have star pilots, special abilities, and stuff like that. The core rules are maybe 3-4 pages, and yet still I found it so hard to learn the game from the rulebook. Maybe because those 3-4 pages of rules are actually scattered one here, one there. A lot of information is not where I expected it to be. Some things, so many things are just left implicit. And so actually, if you find that I am making some egregious mistakes about the rules, well, that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. So I'm still giving it my best shot. Each aircraft in the game is represented by one of these cards, and you can select starting forces any way you see fit. You simply assign it to the players, you decide what you're going to have, you roll on tables to generate the encounters. And each airplane will have a contact value, which is the rating that you use the first time you dogfight against an enemy. That's pretty much what the rulebook says, although it doesn't. Then later, when you look up dogfighting, it doesn't explicitly say anything about that. So you have to kind of infer, putting together different passages in your mind, like, okay, that's what it means. Maneuver, which is what you use on the dogfighting after you already make contact. So that's basically by applying the rules of maneuver to the first round, they think, okay, then it's the same thing using contact. Damage is how much damage the airplane can take before it is destroyed. And barrels, I believe it defines the number of bursts that you can generate on the burst table, but it doesn't say so explicitly anywhere. And this is a lot of what's happening here. A lot of things are like, I guess it makes sense this way or that way. Anyways, each pilot also has a reputation value, which is indicated by a red marker. The yellow marker represents the damage. And then each aircraft has a number of bonus dice, which is recorded using these cards. They're single-sided and they show 2 numerical values each. So you're supposed to set up the game the way you see it here, with the aircraft there, the airplane there, and this one, and each card showing which of the 2 values currently you have. This plane has 3 bonus dice, this plane has 5 bonus dice, and the other values and the other tokens covering the one that doesn't apply. Then later in the game, you're going to move them because, okay, we roll the dice and it turns out that these 2 are matching up. These 2 are fighting against each other. That's fine. We move them that way. Then we roll the dice and it turns out that this one is gaining on that one. So actually you got to move the airplanes to indicate the position, which one is tailing the other. Oh, and now I'm going to spend a bonus die. So I'm going to remove these tokens, turn it around. Oh, no, I need to replace the card with another card to indicate that I spent that bonus die. So between moving the cards as the airplanes move and rotating the cards, replacing the cards, this seems to be a strangely cumbersome way of keeping track of bonus dice. It really makes me wonder how much this game has actually been playtested and developed, because I can't believe that the developers were like, oh yeah, of course, we love the idea of doing all the stuff that I just showed you. When the game also comes with a lot of blank tokens, so there could have just been another token indicating how many bonus dice you have. Also, I wouldn't have minded if these very generic tokens had a little R here to indicate reputation, a little D there to indicate this is damage. Again, I understand they weren't trying to keep it cheap and affordable, but that wouldn't have been that hard to mark them in some way. And we also have some event cards that sometimes it's unclear to me what they do, and some of the times it's a little more clear, but as you can see, they're very basic. So, spoiler alert, how does the game work? I think I figured it out. You roll on a bunch of tables, one after the other, and see what happens. The only truly significant decision that you have to make, it seems to me, is when you spend your bonus dice. Other than that, you will roll dice to pass tests. And to pass tests, it means that you'll have a value, usually it's your reputation value. You're rolling a number of dice, the more the better, and you're trying to score successes, score hits. Each die that you roll equal to or lower than the value you're rolling against is a success. Again, usually will be against reputation. So I'm rolling 4 dice, for example, and I just had 3 successes because 3 of them are equal to or lower than the value. Again, reputation, 90% of the tests are against reputation. And so that's pretty much, I told you how the game works. Really? Yes, I think I did. At least the basic game. Then there's a campaign game, but I haven't played a campaign game because I've been too frustrated with the basic game. So, first, when the airplanes are approaching each other, we are gonna roll to match them up. We roll dice, and then, whichever gets the highest die roll gets with the highest, lowest with the lowest, so they're matched up randomly. And then for each pair, we start resolving combat, going through the tables in order, starting with the dogfight table. Here's the number of dice that each player starts with. And so each player will start with 2 dice for that kind of test. And then you apply modifiers such as you will have bonus D6 if you have a maneuver rating and you're remaining on a dogfight table. This is what makes me think that instead you compare contact values to see who gets this bonus the first round. But it doesn't say so. If it does it, it's somewhere that I haven't been able to find. Other modifiers can be, that's when we spend our bonus dice to get more dice. Maybe the events will give us different amounts of dice. So when all is said and done, each player will have a number of D6s, they roll them, and they compare them. If it's the same, no advantage. If one opponent has more successes here than the other, then they take control, and that's when you put them so that one is behind the other. Then we go to the taking control table. Each player starts with 2 dice, apply modifiers from different circumstances and or spending bonus dice. Roll dice and see what happens. If there is a tie, then the one that was being followed is able to lose the tail, and so you return to the matchup. So this pair, nothing happened. They circled around a little bit, nothing happened. Or one has more than the other, and if that was the winner from before, the one following the other, now they lined up a shot. So we do something new. No, we don't. We go to the next table, we pick up 2 dice. Again, we see how many successes we get against reputation, apply modifiers, and we get a number of bursts. So I assume that if you say get 3 successes, it means you get a long burst and a short burst. Or is it 2 the maximum? I don't know. It doesn't say so. But we will have a number of bursts. Now, depending, and then we start with 2 dice. And this time we roll not against reputation, but against firepower, which seems to be, again, what comes, the burst that you got before. Say I got a long and a short. Each long burst, these were 2 fire points. A short is on 1. So if I understand correctly, if you can put them together, then I'm running against 3. Or maybe you can only do 1. So you roll dice against firepower, and then you'll have a number of possible successes. And that tells you if there was a hit and what happens if the airplane got damaged. And then, of course, depending on what happens, you may continue on, go home, etc., etc., etc. So as you can see, I'm being a little bit vague because basically I'm giving you my personal interpretation. Even as I explain, I was like, no, this cannot be, maybe it's different. I've been playing, again, what I don't know if it's the game of my variant because I found the rulebook so frustrating. And I even reached out to the designer who's actually, quickly answered the questions. And then I still had so many more questions that I thought I'll just give it my best try. Because ultimately, although I may be totally missing some of the fine points, what I think I haven't missed is the core of the game, which is rolling on those tables, choosing when to spend your bonus dice or not, spending time moving around these cards and these tokens. And that's about it. And so you have the core idea of the procedurally generating narratives of so many other games by 2-hour word games, just without the narrative. Because ultimately, it never really felt like, oh my gosh, that was a great story, a great duel. It just remained numerical. It remained abstract. And again, it just remained so clunky with all of these different things to take care of the modifiers. So when I actually played, I don't use the bonus cards at all. I use a die to record that. Again, maybe it looks a little less thematic because this thing covered the illustrations, but at least I can move them around like this. If I'm spending a bonus die, then I'm done with that. So it's just a game that really I was not, that did not fill my heart with joy. Because again, all of the work that I had to put in to learn a game that at the core was so easy. And if I was eased in so simply if all the rules about the basic campaign were at the beginning, then you give me the stuff about the stars and the grants and the campaign. You just give me the core rules first, 2 pages. You just give me a paragraph that says roll on the tables, do this, do that. And then I'd be, guess, whatever. I think even then, if I hadn't struggled to learn the game is just a little too easy, too basic, too random. When you add the randomness of the cards or the event cards, even more randomness happens. But this is not, again, this is not the worst thing. I play games in which, narrative, random narratives emerge. Tales of the Arabian Nights is a great game that has almost no strategy, ton of randomness, and ton of story. You can just see what happens. And here, seeing what happens, I don't get the sense that I'm there on the skies over Europe. Seeing what happens means, let's see if it's a 4, let's see if it's a 2. It just does not translate to a theme. It doesn't translate to a topic, to a real narrative. So at least to me, I didn't see the theme through the mechanics. The mechanics felt devoided of true meaningful choices, and so because of this, alas, I wasn't too excited about Aces Up. Now, there's another game in the same system. I tried that also. I was less frustrated trying it to learn it because I got the general idea from this one, but the rulebook per se just seems to me as lacking as the one of Aces Up. It's a science fiction version of this one with more unique effects, so more races, more counters to move around. So if you had that race, you had that advantage. It is still, however, the same idea here with more steps, more things that may modify your rolls on those tables, who gets bonus dice and when. But it's ultimately the same idea as Aces Up with more steps. So if you find this game promising and interesting from what you see here, good for you. I'm really happy that I was able to expose you to a game that maybe is great for you, because the more people enjoy the games, the happier I am. And maybe if you like the sci-fi version instead of the historical one, good for you. Alas, neither game really worked for me, just not my kind of game. And generally speaking, also, I think that the production in general made the experience even more underwhelming.